hopefully. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first installment of the Subspace infrastructure sync. Today, Leo is going to be leading this, and he's going to give us some updates on what's been happening on our backend infrastructure side. Given that we are an independent blockchain, we've got to do a lot of work to make sure that we've got a quality infrastructure on the back end for our dev and test nets and eventual main nets. And we're going to go through the infrastructure, and then we're going to talk about the relayer deployment in a little bit more detail that we have planned soon. So, Leo, pass it off to you.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can share my screen actually to be able to show what I've been working, because it will be better understand if I show this. After doing testnet resets and relay resets several times, I have been like writing several commands that, and at some point I realized that we were able to create some kind of script to automate this. So basically, I created two scripts. One is already in the repository actually, but I got this one that has some basic options to run a development container, 3 containers actually for the development tags, another one for the latest tags, and some kind of other to stop the network, start the network, clean the full state of the network, etc. So with this script, basically you can just run the script and set that you want to install the development image for the network, and it will pull all the things and everything, and then you can just check the logs, and you can just validate that you have the network running. It will work in any computer, in your local host or in a DigitalOcean machine. And for the relayer, I made something similar actually. For the relayer, it just build the available containers in GitHub. So you just do the same. You just set one, and it will clone the repository, build the image, and it will ask you for you want to run this in archival mode or on live mode. If you run in archival mode, you have to set the directory. So I don't know exactly what's called in this case. Sorry. Let me check it. This is the machine that I was testing. It's a separate machine actually. It's not in the repository, in the infrastructure. It's another machine. Sorry, it just hang it. And just to show in a fast way, I'm gonna run the live mode. If you run the archival mode, it will ask you for the directories from where is the data for the archival import, and it will stop the containers, kill the containers, and it will actually start creating the feeds and funding the accounts and everything. As you can see, it's now funding the accounts. After that, we'll create the feeds, and after that, we'll start the relayer in live mode. This works with the latest version, obviously. So I have been working in this feature because it works for every testnet reset and everything, and also updated the documentation with all these commands, like separated, and if you can do this manually from the documentation, or you can do this with the script. It's the same. So here we have the network like running. We can check the logs of the network, and for the relayer, and it works. Actually, that's the main update that I was working, because all the other updates has been related to some discarded things. Like I tried to run this shared folder in an NFS server with NFS clients, but it didn't work well because for some locking reasons of the remote folders, you can just have one person like reading the archival at the same time, because it locks the database, and I mean it doesn't work well. And that's are the main updates, I think, for the infrastructure. Right now we have the development environment and the testnet running. I don't know if we need to update this like today with the latest. I don't know if users are working in the dev environment right now, or if Nazar already resetted for the latest images.
I actually tagged you both that the new images are available, but I'm not managing that instance. So it's up to you to restart.
Okay, for the testnet, right? So I will be there. I also realized that you were downloading the a version 2 of there is a folder called version 2. We should use that folder for is like
If you're using the
already
main
completed.
branch of Relayer, yes, because that is a different format and you need a different code base to read it properly.
Okay,
It, for instance, includes
I will do that.
hashes of the blocks alongside with the block itself, so you don't need to like parse it and hash it manually.
Okay.
I had a few questions about that. Why are we not using Docker Compose, for instance? It automates creation of the containers, creation of volumes, connecting them together, reading logs, restarting, purging, everything. Like most of those commands, they are already implemented, and we can have declarative config. And it should be easier to read as well, compared to like long line with all of the parameters.
Yeah, I think that I can move it to a Docker Compose file.
I just think
But
that most of those commands will be replaced with Docker Compose. I believe even tags on images you can also read optionally from environment variables. So like Docker Compose logs -f, and you can read logs and follow the updates. You can do Docker Compose restart and restart of the containers. You can do Docker Compose down, and it will erase all of the volumes. So I think that will be a little bit easier in the environment where we already use Docker. And
okay,
everyone who is familiar with Docker can do.
I have no so much experience in Docker Compose. Actually, it could take me some time to do it, but I can give it a try. If you say that will be easier
Well,
in the
if
end.
you have those Docker run commands and you go to Docker Compose YAML file reference, they mostly map one-to-one. It's just that instead of CLI, you specify them as like a tree in YAML. For the most part, they match one-to-one. And about NFS, there are actually things in Linux called like overlayFS, for instance. I think there is AUFS and maybe some others, where you can basically build an overlay file system. For instance, when you run live CD, you are booting into the like read-only file system, but you have some file system on top where you can actually do modifications. So you would be able to mount this archive from the NFS, and they'll then use that as a base layer for another file system. So those logs will be like on the higher level of the file system, but you can reuse all of the data because it's read-only anyway. So it is. I think it is more than possible to do.
I was getting an error. Call it like I don't know. I think that at some point Level Up tried to lock some file, and as I was mounting the folder in read-only mode, I wasn't able to.
Was that latest relayer? The latest relayer explicitly says read only for when it tries to open the file, so that might be enough. If not, we can try to use overlay file system and use it that way.
Okay, yeah, I will test that because I tested that yesterday in the night. It was not the latest version. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you need latest version for version 2 of the archives anyway.
Yeah, and those are my mail updates. I don't know if you have some doubts, guys, because
I have a question regarding configuration file. So currently we don't have to rebuild image if we update configuration, right? We just reference external.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Also be careful if you mount just a file and you edit the file, restart may not actually reread the file, because in practice it will actually mount the file system inode, which is like special object in the file system hierarchy, and not the file itself. So when you change the file, it will create a new inode, and you will still reference the old version of the file, even though it's kind of deleted. So the better approach is to mount the folder and then reference the file in that folder. That way, if you like run restart on the container, you don't even need to recreate it, just restart. It will reread the new configuration automatically. Just a small gotcha, because it might be confusing to debug.
Sorry, what would we call that, Nazar, for like a ticket or a task? I'm trying to capture what you just said. It didn't. I know it sounds important.
Yeah,
I didn't quite.
I think we need to create a Docker Compose for this setup and make sure to mount a folder where config is instead of the config itself into the container.
Okay, so this is related to the Docker Compose. Okay.
It's for Docker in general.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments for Leo on the infrastructure updates?
I'm not sure we have those tickets anywhere, but I mentioned as well a few times that we actually need to specify a different node ID, like node key. Currently, we are using something that is generally known, and I think that can be used for some malicious purposes, if you can impersonate the Bootstrap node and stuff. And another thing is we still, I believe, have in instructions the IP address used for the Bootstrap node. We should also switch that to DNS. I'm not sure it's captured anywhere, but I think it should be. So basically,
yeah,
we
that's
already have the WebSocket endpoint pointing to the DNS to pointing to WebSocket for RPC purposes, but we also need to use DNS name like that for the bootstrapping purposes.
Yeah, I realized that the three containers like run in the same network. So in the scripts, in the documentation, actually, I was like exporting a variable that get the internal IP of the boot node in the network, in the Docker network created, and set it like automatically. I don't know if
internal
that's
network,
enough.
yes, but when we expect people to join the network, it will be more difficult.
Yeah. If it's documentation for external purposes, I mean, we need to add the DNS or some public IP, address in the boot node.
Actually, if you have RPC node running on the same server, the DNS name should already be there. unless we use the Cloudflare as a proxy. If it's a proxy, it will
No,
mask
it's
the-
not set as proxy, I think.
Okay, then it should just work. We just need to update instructions instead of IP address, use DNS name. It should just work.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess another thing about setup, on RPC side, we were using -- validator flag. That is not amazing, and that is not required anymore. So if you connect the farmer to the Bootstrap node, and on RPC node, we do not connect the farmer and remove the validator flag, it should work just fine. That was not secure. That's all on my side.
I'm trying to resume the task a little. So I have to update the boot node DNS, trying to make this with Docker Compose to allow this config JSON be updated like dynamically. And
It's not for that,
you
it's like
mean-
in general.
Yeah. And the last thing you said is like the Bootstrap node shouldn't be a validator, right? The validator flag.
Validator, and there are like unsafe RPC and stuff that were required for that purpose. Like all of those can be removed.
And we need to update the node key.
Interesting.
Okay. Leo, everything you showed us and you described earlier, is that in review right now in GitHub?
Yeah.
Okay. And who is that? Who's reviewing that, or who's pending the review on that? Just you, Nazar.
Oh,
Okay.
I shared it like 1 hour ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 hour ago.
All right. Okay, and have we started creating issues in that repo to track all of these tasks yet, Leo?
No. I have a couple of tasks, and I was just taking it from my notes.
Okay. So the first task.
These ones?
Yeah, the first task after this is to create all these tasks in GitHub in the issue tracker, so that we can capture all this stuff. Because we talked about this last time, but it seems like there's still some stuff that we're missing here. So let's get all this in GitHub, and then we can tag these PRs to these tasks and close them out one by one, and make sure that we're actually tracking all this stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
I will be on that.
Okay, great. So aside from all the stuff that Nazar just mentioned, that feedback, what did you have in your mind aside, before that, for next steps on the infrastructure side?
I had like improvements in the creation of the virtual machines, actually, of the droplets, like kind of app only SSH key authentication, like disable some kind of security updates, basically, and make it run in. I think that the most important is making run in the Terraform cloud, because it will allow to have the state like shared. And at this moment, just me, I am the only one that have the Terraform state, and no one else can like deploy anything. And with Terraform Cloud, anyone in the team that had access to the organization can propose changes or anything. Basically, handle the infrastructure.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, maybe automate like the installation of Docker and Nginx and the generation of certificates, those kind of things that we already have like the commands, and maybe find a way to have the machines like automatically configured like with Docker and everything. But I don't know if that's so important. And for the future, I don't know, we have talked about separate the farmer and the relayer and the boot node and the public RPC in different machines, and trying to scale that will be a next. I think that
I think it's further down, because in that case, if you restart something, we'll need to restart in 3 places. It will take more time.
Yeah. So for now, we are just scaling the machines and adding more CPU and more RAM, and for now it works well actually. And for the relayer, it's faster to start the importing and everything. You have less delay. And yeah, I think that after that, I have a pending comment from Nazar regarding the Nginx SSL configuration. Have to update the TLS available supported methods. Yeah, versions actually. And yeah, I think that's everything. I don't know if we have something else like urgent for this sooner releases, but what we
Well,
have, what we have now
goal, right?
Just works. Yeah.
Okay. The goal right now, Leo, is to close, like to not have you full-time infrastructure for, forever, which you kind of have been for the last week or two. So what we'd like to do is get this to a stopping point, and then be able to move on to more like front end and product development related stuff, like the farmer, Subspace JS, things like this. So we need to be smart about how we manage our time and how we prioritize these tasks over the next week, and try to get these the critical tasks closed out, and then just track these remaining tasks basically in a backlog to work on later, or even we might be hiring somebody who in the near future who could just focus on DevOps and infrastructure, and taking this to the next level. But we don't want this to become your full-time job, so we just got to be really careful about that.
Actually, I think that with the last pull request, for now we don't have to do much work.
Okay. One comment I just wanted to make sure we're clear on. You said something about restarting the testnet, or updating the images on the testnet. But I just want to be clear that like we're not restarting the testnet. That's like a last resort, like once we're absolutely ready to do it, because we have shared that link with everybody, and people are using that as a, people are expecting that to be online right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you had mentioned like updating the Docker images on that, but correct me if I'm wrong, if we update the Docker images on the boot node, then that means that we like basically have to restart the network. We can't just do that and continue with what we have.
We shouldn't touch the testnet. We just need to update the devnet.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So go ahead.
No.
Okay.
I think that yeah, I got it. I don't know if users are already testing with the latest versions. Otherwise,
Not
maybe
yet.
we can create a second development machine for testing the latest changes. I don't know, or just wait.
There is no point to test not
testing.
latest changes, honestly. Just update it.
Yeah, we can use same environment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we update, so let's just make sure we understand what we're doing here. So if we update the dev environment, then that means that has to restart from Genesis as well for archiving everything, since we're starting a new node. And that node has been running for, I don't know how many days to sync over the network. So that means that we're going to be starting over from scratch again. Is that something that we need to do right now, or should we just test the relayer? Should we just update the relayer Docker image versus the Subspace Docker image?
Why does it hurt to restart it?
Um,
It's counterproductive if you cannot restart even DevNet. Like there are many updates on the node side which actually fix some problems. It would be great to actually run them.
Okay, so we are going to, okay, well, if that's what we need to do, we need to restart everything. But like what, okay, so who is doing that, to be clear, and when will it be done in that case?
Well, I can do that.
I like the silence.
Okay, so Serge, you're gonna restart or reboot the DevNet, the Aries DevNet, with all of the latest images for the relayer and for the Subspace farmer Subspace client node.
Yep.
Okay, so that means, just so I understand, so that means that it will start, and all of the volumes have been updated with the new RocksDB database format. So that means it will basically run everything from Genesis using the local archives, and then once it gets to the end of the local archives, then it will start syncing over the network.
Right.
Okay.
The only exception is Basilisk, because the image is broken. I can only sync from RPC of the own finality, and that is like 0.3 blocks per second. So it'll take forever and a little bit to sync. It's almost like it's about 40% done at this point. So it will take a few days. But for everything else, we should be able to get to the same capacity as we have right now on the DevNet, like in 10 minutes from archives.
Yes, thanks for clarifying that, Nazar. We have excluded Basilisk from this trial run. So when I say everything will be working by Friday, I mean everything but Basilisk, because we just can't get it to work.
We actually don't have to. We can actually leave it there. It will just run from Genesis slowly. It will not break anything.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, great.
You mean, sorry, you mean run it slowly over a RPC?
Yes, there is no archive for it yet.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. And we do have 2 independent Aries testnets right now, or just 1?
No, we have just one.
Okay,
But we
so we have
the
1.
containers, or two VMs. One is testnet, and the other one is just Aries testnet.
Okay. So what we need to do is, so here's the best case scenario. Okay, so Serge, you restart the DevNet, everything works, amazing, great. In 8 hours it syncs, we're ready. Okay, so then we need to start a second testnet environment, or have a second testnet environment, which is our, I don't know what color that is, but that's our backup testnet, which we then restart the whole thing. We deploy all that to again, let that sync up. Meantime, our regular testnet is running. Once the new testnet is backed up from Genesis all the way to the head for all the pair chains, then we just swap the 2. Okay, but what I don't want to do, I just want to be really clear here, what I don't want to do is deploy a new testnet that's not synced. Okay, I want to sync the testnet first and then swap the 2 over. And maintain the old one, keep it running in case the other one crashes, we can just switch back. And we're not sitting around for 2 or 3 days with nothing working while we try to figure out how to fix it. Okay. So we're gonna have 2 test environments.
I think we should call them like A and B, or blue and green. And we actually can have for them separate DNS names and have like a CNAME which points to either one of those. So if you really want to, we can like connect Polkadot.js to specific instance, but there will be like one that is default right now. And if you don't know what is active, you can actually go to the Cloudflare and see what is configured there. So I think that's how we should do it eventually.
Okay, I agree. I think A/B is better than colors because it's kind of subjective. So we'll call A, whichever one is actually being pointed to, as our from the public view as our testnet, and B is the backup, and then we'll just swap them out as needed, or B is the secondary, I guess.
It's not the secondary; it's just A and B. So sometimes the main will point to A, sometimes it will point to B, and we'll just alternate them as we do updates.
Okay.
It's not like we rename them.
So it's just like random, which one is the main one?
Yes, basically, yes.
Okay. Okay. So Leo, so that is another task that we need to do. If we don't have that second test environment ready, that B environment, we need to go ahead and get that B environment ready, because best case scenario, tomorrow we'll be deploying the B environment, or we'll be spinning up the B environment and syncing it so that on Wednesday we can do the swap over, best case scenario. Worst case scenario, we have one extra day to cover ourselves. We have Thursday so that we can be prepared for the announcement on Friday.
Okay, I know that. We'll create
Great.
all this as an issue, I think.
Great. Okay, I don't want to talk about it right now. It's not a critical task, but next week we need to think about as new parachains are added, getting those in here, and then as we need to eventually think about getting Polkadot on here as well. So actually, that is a task for you, Serge. That is one of these in the backlog. One of these tasks that you need to pull up to the front is the ability to have two primary source chains. So that we can run Polkadot and Kusama in parallel here. And because we've got Polkadot, we've got StateMine or StateMint, and we're about to have a bunch of parachains soon on Polkadot. And it's very clear that parity and everybody's really excited about this. And so the next logical question is, when are you going to back up Polkadot? Okay. So we're going to have to make sure on the infrastructure side that we're supporting that, and that we need to eventually automate that as much as possible, because of course there will be a lot of updates to this over time. I mean, eventually there could be 300 Kusama parachains or 900 Kusama parachains, I believe, and 300 Polkadot, or sorry, got that backwards. 300 Kusama, 100 Polkadot parachains, I think is the current plan of what they can support. So that's 400 different chains. So we got to really figure out how to automate this in the future. Just painting the picture here. It's not something to work on today. Yeah, and I just want to close by reiterating the timeline here. We have until Thursday to get this working in this production setting. Okay, so let's not waste any time in transitioning and testing these environments as we deploy changes. And let's make sure that we're updating everybody in the Discord, and we're just keeping good communication, and everybody's abreast of what's happening as this stuff moves forward. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, thanks everybody. I really appreciate the hard work on this, Leo especially. I know you've done a lot on this, on updating this infrastructure. It's come quite a long way. So yeah, thank you very much for all the hard work on this. I know we're being nitpicky about a lot of things, but it's still like night and day different and better than it was, 2 weeks ago. So thanks for all that. Okay, well, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.